this is deep. Like that's what I'm saying. This is a secret. This is why I said it's not really secret because he's said it. It's just that most of us miss it. But welcome back to another episode of Is It Good? And today we'll be doing something a little bit different, of course, because yeah, most of our episodes we're exploring the different kinds of content. As this is a fairly new channel, so one thing I want to ask you guys to do before we go any further is to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. If you're not subscribed, comment below, if there's anything that you want to say, but also share with a friend because we'll be doing more stuff like this. Without further ado, let's get into it.
Uh, yeah. Uh, yeah.
So today we'll be talking about Kendrick Lamar's Reincarnated from his recent GNX album. I've been thinking about doing this video for some time, actually, since the album dropped. It just felt deep to me, and there were a couple things in it that made connections to previous albums. And so I said to myself, why not just do a video? But the thing that kept me from doing it, or why I've hesitated for so long, is one, because I wanted the hype of the album to die down. I thought that would be good. But also, I was hoping that he would have done a music video by now. I was hoping that there would have been a music video release for this track. That way I could just do a breakdown of whatever visual they present, because I'm sure it's going to tie into the meaning of the song and the secret meaning that I'm going to be talking about today, which will be the secret meaning will just be the main point of the story. Everything else is essentially going to be built around it. So yeah. All right. So Kendrick is often exploring many subjects in his songs. In this song in particular, something stands out, or rather blends in, to the point where most of us miss it. And I think that's the thing, is like most of us miss this, right? So that's why I thought it'd be cool to do a video about it. It blends in so well with all the other points of the song that you can kind of miss it. But in it, he's grappling with darkness. And that's interesting because he's not shunning it. He's not playing self-righteous, but he's confronting these concepts with the nuance of a philosopher. I think that Kendrick actually is more of a philosopher than a rap artist. It just so happens that music is a great medium to explore some of these themes. So one thing that's very clear is that he's spiritual. Lyrics like Spirit Medium, I Don't Rap Brother, from Rich Spirit, show us how much what he's writing is deeper than music to him. He may be spiritual, but Kendrick isn't exactly well adjusted. And by that, I mean to life on earth, which is something that I can relate to. And maybe is why I was able to kind of recognize it. But it's something we see him lyrically wrestle with for as far back as Good Kid, M.A.A.D City, the album, right? Here, he initially approaches his fish out of water analogy. And I think this very basic analogy is kind of what he starts out with, right? Good Kid, M.A.A.D City, which is like being from a crazy city, but being a straight-laced and sane in many ways, right? Kid. So Kendrick doesn't reserve his storytelling or sharing of the evolution of his perspective strictly to music from his own catalog, right? So even from Good Kid, M.A.A.D City, where we see him kind of wrestling with the fact that I'm in an environment where I stand out. Um, but typically, he doesn't just stick to his own albums when he's wrestling with some of these concepts. And a great example of this to me is a feature that he did after the To Pimp a Butterfly album, which I think is a great place to kind of start because To Pimp a Butterfly represents Kendrick's critically acclaimed Grammy success, right? Like it's a Grammy winning album. Um, but for me, it's the most political. It's almost like an amalgamation or a concentration of his most political thoughts and, in a way, an attempt to inspire Black people. And so it's like super political, super Black, but also super inspirational. Those are three things that I would liken, or three main things, main takeaways or themes that I get from To Pimp a Butterfly, right? Now, the reason why this is a great place to start is because it feels like coming off that album, he was pretty much just um, kind of exhausted, drained, from making something so dense, in terms of the content, subject matter, and the different themes. And so I think he was probably um, exhausted and feeling the need to kind of search for inspiration from different angles. I think that, he found himself leaning on his faith. And this is something that we kind of see him addressing in one of the features that stood out to me right after To Pimp a Butterfly, the album came out, which is Holy Key from DJ Khaled's 2016 Major Keys album, right? Now, the line from that to me, where this kind of started, is the universe and the heavens work in my DNA. Kendrick said, F Mother Earth, that's PSA, the land of the wicked, the foundation of Lucifer's spirit, walking zombies and spell catchers, I pray for forgiveness. No, I'm definitely not trying to sing the song. I'm just, reciting the lyrics. So don't roast me in the comments or roast me in the comments. But I just feel that this verse to me reflects him kind of grappling with that faith and kind of questioning faith in a way. And you can kind of tell that he's frustrated. You realize you get to see this fish out of water analogy again is evolving. It's going from being a good kid in a M.A.A.D city to, um, it's not just the city anymore that's racist or the country, because no, he's been traveling out of the country. His worldview has also expanded as an artist, and he's seeing more, but he's still feeling isolated, or maybe not isolated, but he's still feeling like a fish out of water. Right now, it's deeper than just the country being racist in institutional ways. The earthly existence itself agitates his search for peace, right? In his spiritual and perhaps biblical search, he's found that we're living on a planet that had an original design which has since been perverted. And for people who are Christians out there who are familiar with the Bible, they'll know what I'm talking about. But I'm merely referencing. Right, so the Christians out there will understand. I'm merely just referencing his reference point in that period of time, which is biblical, and you'll be able to tell later on. You'll see why. But you see it. The surge is very spiritual and very biblical that he's going through right here. Through his entire verse, Kendrick is ruminating on his faith and beliefs. He's not just a fish out of water in Compton or America, it's the earth itself. He does not belong, or he does not feel like he belongs. Right? Now, 2017, Kendrick Lamar drops his surprise album, Damn. And he keeps it fairly unpredictable with his albums, in that he might give you a cryptic warning from a website with a poem be talking about his long rides on hills of silence, or you might wake up and the internet is on fire because Kendrick put out a new album while you're asleep, which I understand. You don't want anyone to be able to predict, or you don't want to be predictable. So Damn is a surprise album. It drops, and we get what I think is a crystallization of the concept he introduced, which with such ferocity in that Holy Keys verse, right? So now, right off the bat, the album Damn, it's exploring these simple but super deep themes like love, loyalty, kindness, betrayal, humility, and more. Right now, we could get into these deeper themes, but I'm sure there are other videos out there where people break down this album. This album is actually the Pulitzer winning album. So there's so much on this album that is worth talking about. But without being at the risk of falling into that, um, I'm not going to touch too much on those things. So um, there's one thing though, right, that kind of tells us in the Holy Key verse that he's thinking about us as a species, how we deal with each other. In Holy Key, again, he says, Uncle Bobby and Paul Jr. is lost again. The underworld and the fourth dimension my family is in. So you can kind of see that he's thinking about these things. He's thinking about us on earth as human beings, how we deal with each other. So these themes on them, like love, again, loyalty, family, betrayal, humility, these things, these are themes centered around the human condition and how we interact with each other, how we make use of our time on this planet. And on the album, all of these are crystallized into different songs, literally, like all the songs. One of the songs is called Humble. I don't need to tell you guys. One's called Loyalty with featuring Rihanna. One is literally called Love. So yeah, it's a lot of those thoughts that you see him kind of grappling on in features like Holy Key, that verse that he brings to bear in his full creative might on them, right? But we get the sense that he feels displaced. He feels like he's not from here. But if he's not from here, where is he from? Now, Mr. Morale in the Big Steppers clarifies. On the song Call Me Out, Kendrick, in the music video, is asked by his therapist, who says, You text me at 2 a.m. in the morning. You said, and I quote, she's quoting him, I feel like I'm falling. And then she asks him, Why do you feel that way? Right? Now, many people get this wrong because, and this is the secret, right? Many people get this wrong because they think he says to her, or they think the text that she recites back to him that he sent her at 2 a.m. in the morning. Most of us think, most people think he said, I feel like I'm falling, Falling, right? And when you are an artist, it's that those kinds of anxieties are normal. So I think people kind of immediately went with that association. right? But what he actually says, and you can see it if you watch the music video. I don't remember the name of the actress that plays his therapist in that video, but if you watch her lips, you see she says, I feel like I'm falling, right? And then you see later on in that same music video, as after he responds to her question, why do you feel that way, when he says life, and the song immediately begins. The video in the center of the screen is a video of a young child who is later revealed to be playing a younger version of Kendrick with wings and a sad face, right? Now, to me, that's great filmmaking because so much is conveyed in just that couple seconds. And then it immediately switches to the older version of Kendrick. There is no wings, but he is still in red. And let's not talk about that red symbology because it could be his whole heritage, LA politics, gangbanging, who knows. Many people do think that she says falling and not fallen, but you see that child who is playing Kendrick in the beginning, you see that he literally gets up off the floor when the shot begins and he has wings, right? And that's where it hit me while I was watching that video. But it didn't crystallize still 100% there in my mind. I didn't see what he was getting at. And I think most of us didn't, at that time. But he starts off, and this is why Count Me Out is an essential part of this narrative. The same way Holy Key links with Them, the songs on Them, and the songs on Them link like Mortal Man to Count Me Out on Mr. Moral and the Big Steppers. Count Me Out is linked to Reincarnated, right? He's continuing the story that he's telling, the evolution of the fish out of water analogy. And the reason I picked it up when I went back and listened to this song, he starts Count Me Out. He starts it off. His very first line is, one of these lives, I'm going to make things right with the wrongs I've done. One of these lives. How many lives do we got? How many lives do we get? How does it work when we get another life? Are we perhaps reincarnated? So these things are linked, and I didn't realize it until I went back and saw it. But 2 years later, Kendrick Lamar drops the surprise album GNX on the winning end of his battle with pop star Drake, right? Reincarnated has a Tupac sample, and most times when we hear any kind of Tupac reference from Kendrick, it's going to be a deep moment. So he starts off by saying in Reincarnated, I got this fire burning in me from within, concentrated thoughts on who I used to be. I'm shedding skin. He's telling us that he's thinking deeply about his origins, the same origins that leave him feeling displaced on this earth, right? Now, the thing that's interesting about this line, right? Actually, I really should have just been showing you guys the actual lyrics here, but I get distracted very easily when I get into it. But yeah, let me just get to GNX, the album, and see. So Reincarnated isn't necessarily one of his biggest songs, which it tracks because it's such a layered track, right? But if I go ahead and hit this, wait, let me mute this first. Can't afford those copyright strikes. So, Reincarnated, hit the lyric button. Right. So, yeah, he starts off, I got this fire burning within me from, I got this fire burning in me from within. Concentrated thoughts on who I used to be. I'm shedding skin. Every day a new version of me, a third of me demented. Cemented in pain, juggling the pros and cons of fame. I don't know how to make friends. I'm a lonely soul. I recollect this isolation. I was 4 years old. So he's trying to go back to the root. You know, he's trying to go back to the root of this feeling of isolation, as I hinted at initially, or this fish out of water analogy. And he says, I did past life progression last year and it effed me up. Reincarnated on this earth for 100 plus. And so it ties back to what he was saying in the Count Me Out song when he said, one of these lives, I'm going to make things right with the wrongs I've done. So these things are linked. But he goes on, and for those who know this song, we know exactly where he's going with this, and we know where he's going with this fallen analogy, right? Body after body, lesson after lesson. Let's take it back to Michigan in 97. No, I'm not going to break down this entire song. Someone out there has already done that. But he goes through these different lives that he feels that, or that he got, that he supposedly got, right? Because he could just be telling us a story. This doesn't necessarily have, must have happened to him. He doesn't necessarily need to be talking about himself, which we find out at the end of this track for those who don't know. For those who know and don't know. But he goes further. He comes to his present life is Kendrick Lamar, a rapper looking at the lyrics to keep you in awe. The only factor I respected was raising the bar. So he's telling you I was in the whole bar. I'm like a lyricist type thing. Right? Now this is interesting, this part where he says, my father kicked me out the house. I finally forgive him. I'm old enough to understand the way I was living. Ego and pride had me looking at him with resentment. And so this father being kicked out of the house analogy is linked to something that he goes on. He develops this further on, right? This is a setup, and then he goes on to pay it off later on in the song. This is deep. Like, that's what I'm saying. This is a secret. This is why I said it's not really secret, because he's said it. It's just that most of us miss it. But I'm old enough to understand the way I was living. Ego and pride had me looking at him with resentment. I'm closing my eyes, hoping that I don't come off contentious. I'm yelling, Father, did I finally get it right? Everything I did was selfless, right? And for those who know the song, it goes on. He's having this conversation with God at this point, right? At a certain point in this conversation, he says, God says to him, every individual is only a version of you, right? How can they forgive when there's no forgiveness in your heart, right? And he goes on, but this conversation continues with God, right? And he says, I could tell you where I'm going. And God says, I could tell you who you are. You feel me? And this is the origin that we're talking about that he was seeking when he even went back into the Bible, like when he went spiritual, when he went on this spiritual biblical search, he's searching for something, the origin, where he belongs, where he's coming from, where he fell from, right? And past life progression brought him here, these different lives, until he's to this point now where he's talking to God. And God is saying, I can tell you who you are. I can tell you the origin. I know the origin. And God says to him, you fell out of heaven because you was anxious, didn't like authority, only searched to be heinous. Isaiah 14 was the only thing that was prevalent. My greatest music director was you. And this is where the hint started for me. What fallen angel do we know was described as God's chief music director? Drop it in the comments before I say it, for those who know. So God continues the story. He says, it was colors, it was pinks, it was reds, it was blues, it was harmony and motion. I sent you down to earth, down. Come on, man. Down, fallen. This is being weaved right now. I sent you down to earth because you was broken. For rehabilitation, not psychosis. I didn't send you here because something was wrong with you. I sent you here to be rehabilitated. But now we hear centuries you manipulated man with music. Who do we know did that? Right? So we know what we're talking about right here now. This fallen angel is the devil or Satan or Lucifer. Right? Now, the reason why this becomes the metaphysical conversation here becomes interesting for me is because what I think he's doing is that he's making a distinction. I've seen this in other places where people make this distinction between Lucifer and Satan, right? Now, Satan is considered to be just this force, this anti-God force, this anti-good, essentially the epitome of evil. And Lucifer is a fallen angel, right? Now, Kendrick later goes on to say, I rewrote the devil's story just to take our power back. Right? No, he said he rewrote the devil's story. He didn't say he rewrote my story. Now, again, we don't know where the lines of what's true and what was the story is blurred. But perhaps Kendrick feels like he was an angel, maybe not Lucifer. Maybe he believes that he was one of those musical angels that fell for rehabilitation, you know. And that's the big secret. Or, well, again, it's not a secret, but it's what it's not a secret, but it's what I thought most of us kind of miss, or what I think most of us kind of miss when we think about his song. But you can see it's a thread that is a conversation and evolution of this analogy. He's a fish out of water. He's a good kid in a mad city. He's, a butterfly in a messed up racist world. He's a fallen angel on a corrupted earth, which is the final stage, the final realization for him. And so I thought this was interesting, and I thought I'd share it with you guys because I feel like a lot of people probably miss this when they are listening to this song. So yeah, thank you guys for those who made it this far, found this out. If you found this theory interesting, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. We'll definitely be doing more of this. Drop a comment if you feel. Let me know your thoughts on the theory, right? So if the threads that I connected, if you felt that I was doing my detective work real good, Drop it in the comments. Let me know if you felt I went wrong somewhere, or you felt something. If you felt I was right, but there's something else that I may have missed. Drop it down in the comments. But also equally, if you felt like I was dead wrong and reaching in this theory, drop it in the comments. But yeah, this was an interesting video to do, to research and kind of check by the lyrics and things like that. So I'll probably be doing more like this. I have a couple more. Let me know if there's anything that you would want me to do. Drop them in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.